Thanks, Ruth. So I think just for the record, if that says on, I think just for the record, this meeting may be recorded, maybe, I think it will be recorded actually, and it will be, or maybe publicised later on the council's website. I mean, that's what the word in front of me to be exactly, but I think that is pretty much it. So I think we're here today. It's just for the, like I say, it's just left midday, Langham. We've been on a site visit in regards to this particular notice of review, or this notice of review that the local review body. It's been adjourned. We've come back. We've had the site visit, so we'll just go through the process now. So I'll ask the clerk just to remind us where we were and how we've got to where we are now. And I'll ask Robert to go through the slides again, just to remind us of the slides we looked at previously. Then I'll go back to open up to members in regards. We'll go through the process in regards to index of contents. That's no one is going to get a panic. So if that's okay, I'll just ask you, Claire, then just to.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
And we have got no apologies, just for the record. We've got a full house.
Yes, we're full house, 5 members here. Yes, just to provide a reminder of where we are. On the 14th of September, we provided you the usual overview of the application, the notice of review. And you, at the meeting, you agreed to adjourn the item for a further procedure of an accompanied site visit. So it was obviously contrasting views between the applicant and the officer's report. There was obviously consensus that the site visit was required. The site application site needed to be seen first hand. So that further procedure has now been completed this morning, and you're back at Langham to continue with the review. As I said, I went through the overview of the application on the 14th of September. So it might be appropriate for a wee reminder from Robert to go through the slides.
Okay, lovely. Thanks very much for that. Robert, is that okay with you? Can we just remind ourselves what we're looking at last time, what we've probably seen this morning?
That's fine. I don't have remote control, so I'll just stand up here. Meeting you previously were at about this item's 14th of September. We've obviously just had the site visit, so we're reconvening today to decide primarily, firstly, whether you've got enough information to determine to proceed the case, or whether you want to have further procedure. For example, you could have a hearing, or you could request additional information. I'll go through the slides what I presented at the last meeting. These are exactly the same that you saw previously, and these obviously relate to the site visit today. If that's not clear, please let me know, and I can close the curtains if you like.
I think it would be fairly close on the see it helps.
Put
the lights in as well.
You need a degree to turn them lights off with the look of them. There you go.
Oh, thank you.
That's better.
So this is a view. We've been out to the application site today. You can see it in the foreground here, and the farm sheds in the background. So that was us looking back down towards the Esk Valley. You see the existing sheds there, the ones we convened at. And then you've got the other sheds, correct me if I'm going wrong here, in the distance behind those trees there. But you're looking at an elevated site that's looking down to the associated farm buildings. So that was where we were earlier today. Second viewpoint is from the access road we walked up. So you've got the embankments here, that gives you a kind of reference point, and this is looking down on the farm holding and the buildings that are there. That's the sheep building, and that was the other building as well, the castle building. And we parked the cars down here, so it's pretty much, as we saw it earlier today. This is a slightly different view, and we didn't look at this from the site visit. This is from the B709 public road. View of the farmstead, and you see it in the distance here. And the sheep shed and Barnes Cottage as well. We did have the flooding issue, so the flooding issue, I'm quite satisfied when I looked at that in the papers. It's relative to the potential for flooding from the Esk onto the public road. It's nothing within the actual application site itself. So view again from the site, this is looking east. So I think that's where the sheep were grazing earlier today when we looked at it. Yeah, and there were maybe a few carries up in the skyline as well. That's looking south from the actual application site itself, so you can see the plantation close by. Again, we went there this morning. View from similar viewpoint, but this is looking west in the opposite way. So the turbines are kind of off to the left here, up the horizon. And this is looking north. So again, it's a similar view to what you've seen already down to the stadium, if you like. That's the view of the site seen from the north. So as we came to it this morning, when we walked up and came onto it, that's exactly where this is taken from. What you're looking at here is a view showing the site level difference in relation to the access track and the site for the dwelling to the left of the photograph at a higher ground level. We talked about that when we were actually on the site. So you've got the track here, you've got a fairly minor watercourse there, and this is continually climbing. That's the road that goes to the wind farm, so accessing that. You've not got an issue here clearly in terms of flooding given the height difference.
And that's the watercourse we hear in the background, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a view of the burn running along the western boundary of the site. So yeah, it's a tributary of the Esk here. View of access to Burn Cottage and Steading. That's, again, this is seen from the B79 public road. So we came onto the site first thing this morning and we saw Councillor Flibber's car. That's just at that point. It's not maybe as clear as it is today, actually. It's overcast in that picture. But it's showing Burn Cottage and the Steading.
Thanks very much, Robert.
And I'll leave that open so that, you know, if you want to come back to any of the pictures, you can do.
I suppose just then, before we go through the rest of the papers, has anybody got any particular points you'd like to raise or anything at all in regards to the pictures we've just seen? No. Nothing whatsoever. Excellent, thanks very much. So I think in the process, do you want to come in here, Claire? No, I think it's, so we'll look at the index of contents. The notice of review, so at page 5 to 41, notice of review, is there anything within that section of the papers that we want to highlight, look at?
The only thing I'd say, Chair, is it worth discussing that, because there was another, application was withdrawn and a new one put in. So really are these first papers relevant to the decision we make today? Because the applicant, they got a letter from the planner and the response date was at the time of pre-application inquiries.
What about, sorry?
Page 9. Is it worthwhile going through these, because this application was withdrawn and another one submitted? It's just that the applicant indicated that the pre-application inquiries, every indication was it would be favourably considered, and nothing has changed in the intervening period. That's for Patrick Hanna, but Patrick Hanna explained that what he was done was a tabletop exercise.
I think that's part of the standard process. So I think correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, but I think is what's advised in a lot of circumstances is you can have a pre-application discussion, and it is a desktop exercise. So if you're thinking about putting in for a planning permission or applying for planning, you'll do this desktop exercise first, and you'll get an indication into what the view might be of the council. And I think that's and I think that was mentioned particularly because it was felt from the response that there was a view from the council to the applicants that it was quite positive in regards to probably routes. And I think that's what that, correct me if I'm wrong there, Robert.
Well, I think it is relevant to the case. It's a pre-application inquiry dated from 2016, and at that point in time it was a free service. Responses were provided basically on a confidential basis. So, you know, if the applicant wants that to be considered, that's legitimate, because it's at their discretion. What I'm drawing from it is, you know, when it goes through, it does say in conclusion that in the bold part at the top, I confirm that the proposed new dwelling house could potentially be supported under policy H3, subject to the above key issues relating to policy OP2, etc., and information requirements being fully addressed. So it was positive in theory, provided they met those requirements. You know, so it was a kind of conditional positive response, if you like. It does explain later in the letter, and this appears on page 14. Council's pre-application inquiry service is a free and non-statutory service, but you know, it's a fairly limited dialogue. It's carried out without prejudice to any decision that's made on any future application.
It's just that I think the applicant laid too much reliance on it being a positive. Well, they saying it was a positive application, but didn't accept the later parts of the letter.
I suppose when I was looking at this, Jock, I was looking at the reasons, 3 reasons in particular. I think it was for refusal, and I know they've submitted this and they felt as part of their case. I suppose it's for us to determine, do we feel that's weight in regards to what they led up the garden path, so to speak.
Well, they got an explanation, but I think I'll leave it at that.
I mean, the question of whether you can take it into account, yes, clearly it relates to the development, it's an inquiry, you should give some weight to it in your consideration. It's part of the applicant's submission for review, so I think it is legitimate to look at that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Chair. I would take the phrase could potentially be supported as a positive statement. That it's certainly not closing the door on the application.
Yeah, and I've seen them where they're quite decisive. It's not say pack up your bags and forget about it, but quite decisive. But like you say, I mean, I think it goes back to without prejudice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's absolute. And what we consider, John,
I was just going to say once again on page 15, the next adjoining page, it comes back to policy H3, housing in the countryside, and you know it's the same phrases we've seen before. Is it essential for the needs of agriculture? And well, that's the one I think it may well be appropriate in this case. But so often at these meetings, housing in the countryside, it's policy H3 that's we look at it very closely.
Everybody okay with that first section? Is there any other points you want to raise? No. So the next section is pages 43 to 59, which is correspondence. Any particular points in regards to there? I'll give you a couple of minutes just to get our pages and have a look. Sorry, I read that. Sorry, it's report of handling. And related correspondence. So there's 2 things there. Anyways, page 43 to 59 is the points. No particular points. Nobody's raising any points in regards to that. Observation. I know, go ahead. Plenty of time, so.
Not many pages to go through.
There is.
Page 55. It's a roads planning team leader. He's interpreting supplied information, supporting information indicating towards providing guest accommodation. It should be noted that, and it's on about parking, which I wouldn't worry too much about. But it's just that they are indicating they think there's maybe guest accommodation going to be built in here, and it's not just a farmhouse. And that kind of tends to give me concerns as to the applications for a dwelling house, no for a B&B accommodation or anything like that.
So I suppose, I wonder, Jock, if we're going through there's any particular points. Good that you raise that, but I wonder if when we go into session, well, actually, if there's any points maybe in regards to, unless it's clarity, unless you need clarity for the independent plan, I'll send you and Robert on that particular point, what it means. I've read within the report myself personally, that's contained, and I think there's an element of business in regards to this application when it comes to B&B, which I've took on board and considered myself, but I wonder if there's any points maybe pick up and Councillor McKee with that.
Quite happy to advise the applications for erection of a dwelling house. Now, under different uses have different use classes in the planning acts, and a dwelling house is class 9, and there's a definition of it within various pieces of guidance and so on. So I'm not going to go into that in any great depth, but in relation to bed and breakfast accommodation, the threshold between that and guest houses and hotels is if you're using 3 or more bedrooms within the property for letting purposes for B&Bs, it moves into a different use class, it becomes a guest house or a hotel. If you've got a house with more than 3 bedrooms and you're only using up to 3 of them for B&B accommodation, that's not a change of use, that's still a dwelling house. So that's the threshold. When you're above 3 bedrooms being let for B&B purposes, it's then, if it's a large house, it's then a guest house, and you would need a change of use planning application. But as it stands, they've applied for a dwelling house. So if there is an element of B&B accommodation, it's ancillary to the house. So I would suggest you're only looking at the standard car parking requirement of 2 spaces, because you've got to look at it as a dwelling house. And any other dwelling house with 2 car parking spaces could have 2 letting bedrooms without needing a change of use.
I think when the quantity later papers, there's a bit in there, I'll raise it again. Okay? Thanks very much.
Anybody else got any other points? No? Okay, so comments of applicant on observations of the appointed officer, which is pages 67 to 72.
Got the observations of the appointed officer before.
Oh,
61.
let's skip right over it. So,
Yeah.
Right, that's the matter, keep on page. Right. So observation of the appointed officer on the applicant's notice of review, pages 61 to 60. I'll just give everybody a chance to get there. Comments of the applicant and observations of the appointed officer, which is pages 67 to 72. Just give everybody a chance to make their minds up. Plan and application form submitted on the 15th of March 2018, associated plans and supporting information, which is better after information there, it's pages 73 to 272. So the meter, what we're looking at, I think it's here today. But
Yeah, I think page 83 is the unit that causes me concern. I think it talks about indicative layout of similar building somewhere else. That's certainly not a house. It's the middle, top one in the middle photograph.
that certainly looks commercial building now.
It is, aye.
That's commercial, yeah.
Quite concerning when I seen that.
I suppose it's, again, when we get into the actual session, I suppose you'll be able to make comments about it. In regards to clarity, what we're looking in particular at the going through this process is clarification maybe needed. I mean, I want to show Robert in the back of that. I know my understanding is of that. It's obviously an agricultural building that's been converted for this type of use. It's been submitted for, I think, for viewing, so we can get a concept of what's happening commercially there, but obviously it's not what's being proposed. So I wonder if you could maybe put that in context of the bill.
I mean, the way I'm reading this is it's showing examples of a building that looks like a restaurant or a bar or something like that, and it's showing the indicative layout of something that would be similar to the dwelling house. I mean, clearly one's a dwelling house and one's a restaurant, stroke bar, whatever, commercial building, like you say. But it's to give an idea, I think, of the theme of using a lot of glazing and using the materials of the large timber, the exposed painted steel, the brick and so on, so to give you a flavour of what the dwelling house would be like. It's not saying it is the dwelling house, it's a similar style of building, to give you a kind of impression of what maybe the inspirations for it has been. I don't know, I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it.
On page 97, you've got drawings there which, no disrespect, but some of the farm steadings has got up, if they put sidewalls in, it'd be similar to that. And that's the sort of thing that's gained me concern. If it was what you'd recognise as a farmhouse, it wouldn't be so bad, but that's, to me, it's totally out of character.
As you said yourself, Jock, it looks like a farm building, so it fits in to the other buildings.
And I suppose,
It's sitting beside farm buildings.
What we're getting into there is what we should be talking about in session.
Okay, that's fine, aye.
So Jim's wanting in.
Thanks, Chair. Just going back to page 83. Now, my take on this is, as Robert said, this is purely for illustrative purposes to show a similar type of building, but there would be a very significant difference that the building shown here is on one level. The house would have 2 levels. So, the appearance would be quite a bit different from the open plan design which you see in the illustrations there.
And it does look like a conversion of a traditional building, maybe has been
It
used, a portal
should
shed,
be.
it is commercial, it's not residential. But I think for illustrative reasons, it's a reasonable example, just to stick in there that, okay, this has been used elsewhere. But maybe in a commercial venture rather than a
I mean,
residential.
this is clearly a commercial
There's like a
business.
precedent, there is precedent across the piece. So, I mean, that is a big chunk of papers there, mind, like I said, so I'll give everybody a minute just to make sure we've had every chance. 78272. Notice that after that we're getting into the decision notice, but I'll give everybody a minute just to get to that, which is 273280. Sale, that tells us the reason in particular. The reasons for refusal. Move on to that then, which is page 273 to 280. If we've got a chance, if anyone got any particular points on that, I'll give everybody a minute just to catch up.
It's still page 119 now.
Oh, well, yes, I'm sure you've read them, though. Diligently, right through. Before we got here numerous times.
Highlight verse 6. This is
We've got time, we've got time. I mean,
principle,
if we'll come back to you, especially when we get the session.
This is plan in principle, isn't it?
Just double check.
Is it?
Sure, yeah, I think it's.
So we need to come back for design.
There matters.
Yeah, it's full permission.
Right, a full
permission.
detail there, yeah. So the detail, that's why I suppose it's as meaty as what it is with that level of detail. Principles are usually a bit lighter, aren't they? Come back with matters to still be satisfied. Like I say, I mean, and again, when we get into session, we can revisit any of this stuff. Just, if there's anything sticking out as each of us have read the papers that we think, oh, you're a bit curious, is this factual, is it correct, do we need clarification before we get into debate? So like I say, so 273 to 280, the decision letter itself, any points in that? So, next part is relevant extracts from the Dumfries and Galloway Council's local development plan, that's pages 281 to 428. Okay, a bit of information there, but I think we've probably read that chapter and verse numerous times as members of the Plan Application Committee. 281, and photos of the application, which we've just seen again, we've been reminded, which is item 8, but they're obviously in the hard copy, just at the end, at the very end, 429 to 436. So I'll just give everybody a couple of minutes, and if there's any particular points, and if not, we'll go into session. I think we'll just be a reminder again with the clerk where we were, but I think we'd have to get to the point where we decide, have we got enough information? And if we have got enough information to go and make a decision, then we'll go into session and we'll have a debate and see what each of us are thinking. There's a lot to get through, isn't there, when you see it? It's quite, certainly got a market. Right, are we okay? You see?
Yep.
Just remind us where we are then. Clear,
Okay,
thank you.
at this point you should be determining whether you have sufficient information to make a determination. Today you obviously have the further procedures which have been outlined in September meeting still available to you if you require any more information.
John?
No, I think we have sufficient information, and I would congratulate the Chair for requesting a site visit, because I found that incredibly useful today, so thank you.
No, thank you very much. It's one of the most interesting, it's one of the ones you think you wish you could get the whole Plan Application Committee there, just because the level of contrast. I think that we'll get into that debate. Are we happy enough to proceed then with the level of information that we've got?
Yep.
Any other?
Yes.
Yep. Everybody's got everybody, so that's across the board. So then, we'll just open it up, I think, and into session. We'll try and get some views in regards to what we think of the information, the recommendations, and the grounds of appeal, so to speak, but certainly I think grounds to review and we'll open it up. I'll maybe just say a couple of words in, just to start. I mean, I do think the site visit, like John just said, was very much worthwhile. There was an absolute contrast between what, when you read it and your perception in regards to taking pictures, you see the pictures, whether it was on screen or contained within a paperwork, the contrast was quite significant. Flooding issues for me were absolutely, could disregard any potential flooding issues in regard to this site. After seeing on site the topographical layout, so the watercourse that was near to it, I felt was far enough away, firstly. There was no immediate flooding risk behind the house either, coming from the hill, and you could just hear the watercourse in the background. It was far enough away, and I think there was maybe 30 or 40 feet of difference in levels. And I think as part of our discussion we realised that further down the risk was probably more on the public road, and in fact if that road was to flood down there, it separates and stops bent path, and the connection between bent path and Langham, so the B709 I think is referred to earlier, so that would be major. So enlightening to me, that certainly. I mean, I think the proximity from the, just because nobody's coming in yet, but just I'll share my thoughts, the proximity of the current residential dwelling of the applicants in regards to the steading itself, to take into regard security, the sight lines, even the acoustic barrier that's there in real terms, because there's a hill, whereby it says 180 metres in our papers, that's in real terms, when you actually see it, that is unachievable. It's probably near a mile to get round. So whether you walk that, so if there is anything going, whether it's I suppose for husbandry of your animals, or whether it's security in regards to being machine plants, even animals being stolen, you're behind the 8 ball living where they are at the moment. So I'm just kind of general kind of feel in regards to live, you know, and you're probably getting a feel of where I'm maybe heading with this, but it's good to hear what everybody else is thinking. So there's just a couple of points I thought were relevant in regards to the grounds for refusal and why we potentially take cognizance, serious cognizance of the reasons for the review here. So it's good to hear what other people are thinking. I am certainly thinking. Robert?
Just one point of clarification, Chair, I should have mentioned this earlier.
On page what?
Page 57 of the papers includes the response from the Council's Flood Risk Management team. So we did discuss that on site, and it's probably the third bullet point you see on page 57, I think, is the key issue in relation to the third reason for the appointed officer's refusal. It says environmental risk assessment notes that the access road to and from the site floods to a depth of greater than 2 metres during a 1 in 100 year flood event where River S crosses, and development may place potential residents and rescuers at risk. It's clear to me that's the B709, the public road. It's not an issue on the site, so I think it's important to say that here, just for the record, so you've got the direct reference to that, so that issue's understood.
And I think it was a site visit, just made it absolutely clear. And it was going back to the value of that actual site visit. Duke?
Yeah, I think for myself, I think the site visit was absolutely paramount. Seeing where it is now, and even with the flooding issue, if there had been one on the site itself, for the runoff for the hill, it was absolutely taken away, and you could see it. Even with the heavy rainfall we've had, it was manageable. It was going back off into the tributary, which wasn't an issue for me. And I think going back to what David said was in relation to the farm buildings, using that as an example. It's a good example to use, the open planness of the building, taking away what it's actually been used for within the photographs and the illustration. I think, as John mentioned as well, when you actually were there on the site, you've seen the value of that actual site itself, where it is. It's quite a strategic area. You can see 360 round about you, especially with the problems with theft and security, which I get big time. And I think the building itself, the design is well in keeping with the rest of the farm buildings. So to me, it was an absolute blessing seeing the site itself and then being able to put it all together and see where we were with it. So I don't have any further contribution as far as that's concerned.
John, are you wanting to say anything?
I was looking for the page, the 3 reasons for refusal, but I think I remember them. The first one was, I think,
That'll refresh your memory.
The first was the reason for that particular positioning was this gave, as Doug rightly said, 360 degrees visibility, and it was obvious that there'd been breaches of security and losses to theft, etc. in the near past, and farming is so intensive, and the stock, particularly the type of stock in this particular farm, is so valuable. I can fully understand why a visible aspect of security is so important. You can't just rely on cameras and lights, and you have to have a presence. And I think on page 51 near the top, the report states that an important reason for acquiring a new farmhouse is for security purposes, and the applicant has suffered theft of machinery, stock and tools. And I think today's bill just gives that absolute truth and accurate. And so I would say, number one, it has now been satisfactorily demonstrated there is a need for a new house for security reasons, which relates to the agricultural operation. So, particularly in first grounds of refusal, I'm satisfied that that's not appropriate. I'll leave it there.
Excellent, Joe. Jim? Yep.
Yeah, looking at the reasons for refusal, not satisfactorily demonstrated that a new house is essential. Well, essential is a very, very difficult word to define. The site provides overall visibility of the steading and much of the farmland. The business at the moment is conducted from a farmhouse which is not visible from the steading and is quite difficult to access from the steading as well. Looking at the sheep on the hillside, I'm quite satisfied that this is a viable and genuine farming business enterprise, that there is a requirement to be close to the stock, particularly during periods of lambing, and the lambing sheds were just 100 metres down the road from the application site. So I would disagree that it has not been satisfactorily demonstrated. I think it has, in terms of security and the requirements of animal husbandry. The report from C&D I thought was quite useful in that respect, and also there is a supportive letter from the Scottish National Farmers Union also endorsing that view.
Excellent. Thank you. John, have you got any?
My concern is the type of building. I'd like to see a proper structure, and the house is still no well related to the farm buildings as is at the present moment. It's not beside them. It's away from them. It's at 250 metres, I think it says in here, away from the farm buildings. And I appreciate what the gentleman said when we were out on the site, that you could see fields that you'll not see where the farm buildings are, and I appreciate that. But you're not going to get 100% cover of the farm anyway, I would suggest, for anywhere. But the big concern I've got is what's shown here as a house design. I'm certainly uncomfortable with the type of design they're showing in there. I'd like to see a more appropriate house as a house rather than a barn converted to a house type of thing. But other than that, I can see the justification for what the applicants are looking for. And they've been unfortunate. I see it says in here there's about 10 houses that were associated with the farms in that area, and they've all been sold on. So they're in a difficult place. But I wouldn't like to see them getting this application through and then coming back in a few years' time looking for another house on the site as well. That's a real difficulty I've got. But no, it was an interesting viewing today. I wasn't that keen to come, but I think it was worthwhile right enough. It justified where they're wanting to put it, but I'm not too happy that that's maybe the best place, but they'll know better than me.
Thank you very much, Joe. So, no, sorry, I thought you finished.
Well, no, you're fine. We are where we are.
Mm-hmm. No, thanks very much. I mean, I think the 250 metres thing, I didn't pick up on that in the report, but I mean, obviously being on site, that's where it's valuable. It's near the 80, I think. 100, because if it's 250 metres away, then the residential current according to that is about 3,000 metres away. It's saying it's 180 because of the distance, the contrast.
Oh, their existing accommodations, no
I think I can understand different viewpoints. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, as they say. So when it comes to the actual site and design layout, but again, I think it's again it comes back to an individual's interpretation of what they think's good or bad and different. I mean, some of that's maybe it shows the contrast showing the commercial premises is maybe can confuse folk.
Sorry, yeah.
Set you off about the job.
Oh, yeah, these phantom colours.
Lots of them.
Oh, God.
But I think, I mean, when I've read I've read through obviously the 3 reasons for a ground freeze. Were you one in there, Jim? No. Before I say it.
Just to make the point that it's sometimes a good thing to have the dwelling set some distance apart from the steading. There's so much machinery on modern farms, and if there are children around, it's a good thing to have the children divorced from the working area of the farm.
No, because there always is health and safety issues on the farm and agricultural industry. Again, I mean, I think actually for security reasons, it's well sited. If I was going to cite kind of my own opinions, look at where would I have it for security reasons, up elevated and overlooking, and that's what's been mentioned. That's the case that's been put forward. I think that's for all the right reasons, and it's well out the floodplain. Certainly, when you look at that, I would again you think, well, it's actually up there because it takes it away from any element of that water course that's there, and any flooding, even though you didn't see that. So I'll just go through each individual recommendation and maybe have a quick discussion on that, and then we'll come to a conclusion. So, like I say, so grounds for refusal number 1.
Which is one?
53.
53, thanks.
I'll get that again.
Sorry about that.
What it's saying there is it has not been satisfactorily demonstrated that a new house at this location is essential for the needs of the agricultural operations of the farming business, and that none of the other housing in the countryside opportunities are available, and accordingly the proposal is contrary to the policy of the council as stated in the local development plan H3 and to national policy as set out as per Scottish planning policy, which permits the erection of new houses in the countryside only in special circumstances and development plans, and none of these circumstances apply in this case. And I felt certainly it was within the report for extra labour units. That's not, it makes it quite clear that's not the only consideration, but I think actually the justification for people being on site has actually been made, and that was accepted by the case officer. So I am at odds with that particular first recommendation for refusal. The second recommendation is that the proposal is contrary to the policy on the council has stated local development plan policy OP2 and the associated supplementary guidance of new development, in that the design of the proposed house fails to contribute positively to the sense of place and local distinctiveness of the surrounding areas. Now, I think I agree with the majority of the people who have mentioned up to now. It's certainly not a traditional cottage what you'd see in Dumfries and Galloway or even in the LANGHOLM and News and WESTERKIRK's area, but it's blending in with what's there. To me, that's how I see it. It's actually blending in. It's similar to the type of structures that have been built there in more recent years rather than going back 150, 200 years. So I mean, again, I am at odds with that as well in regards to I think what's there in front of us is acceptable. And recommendation 3 of the local plan, that the proposal is contrary to the policy of the council as stated in local development plan policy IN7 and associated supplementary guidance, flooding and development, anti-national policy as set out in the Scottish planning policy, in that it has not been demonstrated that the main access and egress route to the application site is not at risk of flooding in a 1 in 100 year flood event on the fluvial floodplain, and as a result the proposed development house may, and it stressed may, potentially occupants and rescuers at risk. Again, I think because invaluable, absolutely invaluable, that site inspection this morning and that, our own personal assessment regards to that, like you say, if it's...
Microsoft says it's the wrong place, so really it could be defeated, couldn't it?
And that's it. So I mean, again, at odds with 3, I think it's with the value of having a site visit, it just knocks that on the head really, and we've had confirmation in regards to what our independent planning officers' advice is in regards to that as well. So again, I'm at odds with all 3. It's just do we have to, I suppose, in regards to the process, I wonder if we get, I mean, from what I've picked up, Jock, you've got some concerns, but the other 3 members are pretty much in support of the application. So if that's the case, I wonder, we can say our final bits on it in regards to if we want to go through that process, if we do support it or not, and if then we come back to the clerk and the planning officer in regards to whether we look to make some kind of exception in regards to this or not. We'll just do that as a process. Is that what you do, then John, then Jim, then yourself, Joe?
That's fine.
Just basically to summarise what I said before, I think we've addressed all the points. I think the security issue is definitely taken on board. The flooding issue is definitely taken on board. I don't see there being an issue there with that. The two of them, and I think going back to what Jock's saying in relation to the building itself, I think it very much is, and we keep with the areas and where it is the 360, you're looking all around. And I think that if there'd been an old farmhouse there prior to that, with the rest of the buildings, yeah, there might be a little bit of an exception there in what was going in there next, but I think because the buildings there are that type of design and that type of building, this is very much keeping in with that, and it's very much out the way as well, where it is. So, you know, that's where I'm going with that. I do strongly feel that the site visit has cleared all that up in my mind anyway, so yeah, I'm quite happy with that.
Joe?
I would just be repeating what Duke said, so there's no point in saying it again.
Yeah. Jim?
The flooding issue, I think, has been taken care of. I'm satisfied that that is not going, an issue of sufficient merit to justify refusal. The security and essential need for the farmhouse also I'm satisfied with. The design, well, it wouldn't be my preference. There's just a wee bit too much glass in the design for my liking, but it does fit in with the existing farm buildings. There's no traditional house in the vicinity, certainly in the close vicinity. I would almost describe it as a contemporary take on a shooting lodge, the Victorian style shooting lodge, which you get in the Highland Estates.
Thank you, Jim.
I would have some reservations about the amount of glass. I can understand from the point of view of sustainability and solar gain, you want glass to give you as much natural heating as possible, but personally I think it's just a wee bit overdone.
So Jim, I'll tease you a wee bit further, and just so because understand where you're coming from in regards to that and process how we proceed with this. Is that enough, do you think, that you tend to lean on the side of refusing this, or not to uphold, you could say, or do you think you're still aligned, or you may be aligned, I should say, to actually agree with the reasons for the review and uphold the review? Just to try and gain.
Make it clear your options. You've got three options. You can basically reverse the decision of the appointed officer, that's you granting planning permission, or you can vary the decision of the appointed officer, that's you refusing but for different reasons, or you can uphold that.
Okay, so this is original decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to note you're free to make a fresh decision. I know you're reviewing the appointed officer's reasons for review, but say you felt the outcome should be the same but for different reasons, as Claire says, you can do that. So you're not bound by their three reasons. You can look at it in the whole as a de novo consideration. Yeah.
Excellent, thanks for that. Come back, Keith. I'll give you a chance to think about it, Jim. Jock?
My concerns, as much as anything, is about the design. It's 250 metres from the existing building, so it's not necessarily associated as such. And you're looking at that site from the road, you're not going to see the farm buildings because there's trees down there blocking it off. So I've got concerns about the design of the building. There's also an issue in here where it talks about they want to introduce kind of shooting onto their estate, which is fair enough. But it concerns me, that's where what's shown as a design of building gives me cause for concern, as to be is going to be rolled over or come back for extensions and this, that and the next thing. And I'm just concerned that I think it's an ideal site. I wouldn't refuse anybody a house in that area, God, the view they've got is brilliant. But for what the reasons it's being asked for, to me it's too remote from the farm buildings to have to be designed as is shown in the papers here. So I'd like to see another design, and I think that's my biggest problem.
Sounds like you're not against the principle, but you're against the actual siting and design.
Yes, the siting and designs, no. The designs, no. It's not, as far as I'm concerned, it's not appropriate. That and if they want to extend into a shooting, have shooting and obviously have a guest house, that type of thing, well, I think a more appropriate application would have been better. And it might be a good site for such a thing as that. But I'm certainly not happy that it could be associated with the existing farm buildings. As I say, it's 250 metres away, and that's far enough away. And as I say, seen from the road, it's got to be sitting on its own anyway. The farm buildings are not going to be seen from the road. So I've got concerns about it. So I'll go against it at the present moment.
Right, okay then, Joe, you're there on the side of caution. That'll do then, just to progress things, and I'll just propose that we actually reverse the decision. I'll make that formal. I'll propose that we do reverse the decision. I think I've outlined my reasons for that a number of times now, so without going over it again and again and again, just very briefly, but it's because after the site inspection, I think the flooding issues have been cleared up for me in particular. I think the dimensions, if it says 250 metres, are wrong in regards. I think it's very a prominent site in regards to its location, close proximity to the actual stadium, its oversight in regards to security and such like. I think its site location or selection has been quite appropriately been selected. Site and design, I think it's on balance for me, that one actually. But I think it's in comparison to the buildings that are there, being built more recently, I think it complies and reflects certainly the more recent view that's been undertaken in regards to the type of buildings that have been built. I mean, I'll certainly propose to reverse. I think you have, like I say, you've got your security, actually, animal health here, husbandry, so on and so forth. I think that's very important. Security of plant equipment such like being stolen, being on site is fundamental to that in that rural type of location. I think that's important as well. So if we go on for a number of things, but I think ultimately I'll propose that we do actually reverse the original decision. So, John?
I'd be happy to second your proposal, Chair. I have a concern that the external finish isn't exactly, it should be similar to the existing buildings. I would think something like that as a condition.
Right, okay, that's no bother, we'll come back to that. In fact, if we could add that in then, we'll just reverse and have that noted as a condition, because I've got a wee bit of similarities when it comes to that. Reservations, as you say. So, you've got
I was going to just pick up one more thing actually. Yeah, I kind of feel sort of repeat myself, or thirding myself, or whatever you want to call it. I think as Jim picked up, in this day and age, there's a lot of issues with farm security, big time. I'm well aware of that, believe you me. But I think from a point of view of safety in relation to members of the public visiting people, I think it's an ideal situation, the proximity from the actual dwelling house to the farm buildings and agricultural vehicles. And I think going again, it's like a watchtower effectively. You've got an eyes on everything that moves within that area, and at the timber road, everything else. So again, yeah, it ticks the box for me. Yeah.
So, do we have any form of counters? Unless you want to say anything, Jim? I said we'll come back. Do you give you the opportunity? But it's up to you.
No, I would simply make the point, Chair, that I feel the site itself is ideal in terms of supervision of the farm and the steading. It's well above any flooding area. It is simply a matter of design. I have reservations.
Any particular points that a condition might satisfy you with, Jim? Because it looks like it's probably got to be reversed going by the 3 comments already. Yeah. So I mean, it's your opportunity. If you've got reservations, John's outlined it. We can condition that. And we're not for owners.
Well, I can appreciate the wish for plenty of glass in the southeast gable, where you're going to get the morning sun heating the building up. I just feel that glass on the other sides of the building could perhaps be reduced.
So I'll just take advice for yourself, because we've got its full application. It looks like what's outlined is quite clear. So I just wondered if in even conditions it might be difficult, Robert.
No, that's fine. I can certainly give you my take on things. What I'm hearing is the majority of you, if not all of you, are thinking this is actually compliant with policy H3 in the LDP. So that's housing in the countryside. So what you're saying is that's the, if you like, in principle consideration. You're satisfied that that is met on the basis that it's essential for the needs of agriculture at this site. So for me, that's not a departure from policy. You're taking the view that it does accord with that policy and you want to support the principle. Then once you've got the principle, it's looking at the matters of detail with the application, and you've looked at that, and the majority of you think the design is appropriate. But at this stage, if you have misgivings about conditions or finishes and you want a condition on, you can do that. But it has to be necessary. There has to be a reason for the condition. It's got to be reasonable, precise, enforceable, and necessary, crucially. So you could do that. I mean, I don't know if you want another guidance on conditions or not. I'll leave that up to you, Chair. But once you've established the principle is okay and you think it's in accordance with H3, you must look at the detail of the application and satisfy yourselves that you're happy with what's there. The other thought, obviously, is you need to think about which conditions you want to attach. For example, it's a house in the countryside, it's on an agricultural basis. Are you wanting to limit occupancy so that it can't be sold in the open market, so it stays with the business? You know, things like that. We've got a roads consultation response, for example, on page 55. It's just things like that. If you want guidance and conditions, I'm quite happy to provide that.
We'll come back to you.
Yeah.
We'll look for any guidance in regards to... John, do you want to make it clear? We'll come back to you again, Jim. Jock will definitely come back to you.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Because you were quite clear in regards to putting a condition on, because you wanted...
I wanted it to, I know in the drawings, I think it's gunmetal grey, which would, in my mind, would be satisfactory. I just would want a muted colour to fit in with the existing agricultural buildings.
Right, yeah. So you've captured on that, haven't you? Dude, have you got any particular points? No. Jim, I'll come back to you and I'll read Jock the last word.
Well, I think I'm an exact opposite to what John's just said. I would like to see a painted building, just a barn-like building painted. I think I'd like to see a decent structure, whether it's a wood finish or brick finish or stone, whatever. But I'd like to see a proper structured house rather than what's shown on here.
So I think where we're at the moment, I think the majority, as I said, like we'll reverse this decision. So I don't care if you're thinking you'd rather put a motion forward saying no, you didn't want to, Joe, or...
Well, I can just put my note, my opposition to the decision.
To have your dissent
recorded,
it would be in the terms of an amendment put forward that wasn't seconded, so you have to state clearly what it was.
The design of the house, I don't think is appropriate.
So you would be putting forward an amendment that would vary the decision of the appointed officer. Would still be a refusal, but on the grounds that the house.
Yes, the house design is not appropriate. Okay.
Jim, I'll come back to you. Jim,
thanks.
No, nothing more to add.
Right, okay then. So condition-wise, it kind of lasts because it's anything in regards to, I mean, different for what, if there's no, then absolutely fine. We've got the conditions.
I've expressed my reservations about the amount of glass.
We have a difficulty around about, we can't remove glass, I don't think, Rob, would that be right? Am I wrong in saying that? But I think we can't remove which actually, but the colours, that type of stuff, maybe roof clad, that type of, maybe have a thing over that. Roads conditions. Do you want to just remind us of conditions?
Okay, I mean, if it helps, I'm looking at the drawing on page 97, so that's the elevational drawing, and it's got a specification of finishes. So it says roof, black asphalt grey, insulated metal profile cladding sheets to roof. Then the walls are full height cladding in timber, larch, with a low level brick plinth, what we call it a regular base course. The windows are charcoal black, so they're colour powder coated aluminium, and they're obviously quite a large area. So that's the design you've got, the detail. If you're uncomfortable with any of the conditions, for example, the roof material or the colour, you can put a condition on which might guide them. So say, for example, that before development commences on site, details of the roof sample to be used shall be submitted for agreement in writing with the council's planning authority, and you might guide that in terms of what you're looking for. If it's a particular colour, like a muted colour or whatever, you can give guidance in that condition, but it's important to do that because what you're basically saying is you don't want to see the finish that's been specified there. With the windows it's more difficult because you've obviously got, this is the design you're looking at, this is what you're determining, and the risk with the condition is it's kind of tantamount to a refusal. You're either okay with what you've got or you're not, kind of thing, and you can change things a wee bit, sure, like the finishes, and that's fine, but if you're changing glazing, you're almost changing the whole concept and design of the building, I think. So I think that would, if you put that kind of condition on, it'd be risky and unreasonable because it's almost tantamount to a refusal of the application in the sense you're seeking something completely different. The only other condition that was jumping out at me, I mentioned agricultural occupancy, that's up to yourself. That would basically act as a safeguard to link it to the business which you think it's essential for, and that would stop it, for example, being sold to a different party in the open market. If the applicant wanted at some point to remove that condition, say the need for the house wasn't there anymore and they felt they were restricted by that condition, they could make an application to remove it. So there is a process they could do.
What's the Scottish Government guidance in that?
The Scottish Government guidance is now not to use Section 75 obligations to tie it together. They're more keen to see planning conditions used, which used to be the way of it before the Section 75 process came in. So, I mean, it's up to yourselves, obviously, but you know, I would suggest that in these circumstances, a planning condition could be enough. The only other thing I noticed in terms of conditions was on page 55, the roads planning team leader's response. It was a fairly straightforward condition. So the approved car parking is shown in the plan to be provided prior to occupation. So you're not looking at something, I don't think, I mean, it's in your gift that's going to be overly heavy with conditions. But, I mean, again, if you need further thoughts or guidance, I'm happy to comment. Sure.
Yeah, I'll take advice from George.
No, I mean, I did read that before I brought up the condition. I wasn't sure just how enforceable a description on plans were, and that's why I wanted it as a separate condition. So the condition might be that the finish is as outlined on the drawings submitted. I'd be quite happy with that. But I think a condition linking the dwelling place with the business would be appropriate in this case.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think it's that rather than illegal.
I think, Chair, it is important to stick with the large cladding.
Yep.
To ensure that aspect of the design is carried out.
Aye, as proposed, Jim, is what you're saying. So would that be a condition, do you think, because it's been already, should that be conditioned, do you think?
Yes, you can. I mean, it's picking up on those 2 points. If you want to ensure that the finishes are as indicated on the plan and the drawing and the specification, it's legitimate to put a condition on saying that should be the case. With occupation, the normal condition says that the dwelling house hereby approves shall only be occupied by managers, employees, full-time employees or dependents of such persons for the lifetime of the development. And then it's just, you know, it's clarifying what's been presented for you and making sure that the house is relating to the business so it isn't alienated at a later stage. The roads condition is just a code, it's C121, but that basically means that the car parking that's shown is provided before occupation of the dwelling house, simply to make sure you've got the requisite levels of car parking there. But I think, I mean, unless you advise otherwise, I don't think I'm hearing any desire for any further conditions above and beyond that.
That's what I'm picking up.
So that'd be 3 conditions.
Yeah. Materials,
Plenty of space for
roads and
everything.
occupancy is what you're talking, isn't it?
And finishes, yeah.
Finishes, aye, that's absolutely, finishes would be better than materials, finishes. So, just so we're clear then. So we'll reverse that in regards to, and the 3 conditions attached to that, which is roundabout occupancy, roads and finishes. Have you picked that up, Claire?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got that you're agreeing to reverse the decision and grant permission, basically on the grounds of the security aspect of the site and the need for overlooking the steading and on grounds of animal husbandry and plant equipment, the flooding issues not relevant, and basically the siting and design complies with the it's ideally sited for the steading. And you've got, yes, and you've got 3 conditions relating to the finishes, being that there should be as specified in the drawings, agricultural occupancy linking it to a business, and also the roads issue, roads condition, approved car parking to be provided.
Okay.
Are we happy with that? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks very much. No other
Thank you.
business. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
Thank you very much.